Hello, my name is Patricia Ruiz and I'm gonna talk about my ELT presentation. We're gonna start with the index, which includes my objective, my terminology, and from 3 to 9 are the main points that I will talk about. Okay, so the objective is to analyze the differences and similarities between ESL and EFL context and to distinguish the ESL and EFL teaching methodologies. My terminology: ESL, English as a second language; EFL, English as a foreign language. Study abroad, the term given to a program which allows a student to live in a foreign country and attend a foreign university. Culture shock, the feeling of disorientation experienced by someone who is suddenly subjected to an unfamiliar culture, way of life, or set of attitudes. An example is my personal example is when I moved to the United States, which it was a total culture shock for me because it was a culture that I was not familiarized at all, and I had trouble with getting used to what it was over there. The first point is the difference between ESL and EFL teaching methodologies. The first question is there really a difference between ESL and EFL teaching methodologies? And yes, there is. In different countries, the expectation to learn English can be very different, and this has deep implications for teaching. For example, in some countries, English is taught as a second language, and in other countries, English is taught as a foreign language. This depends on the context of the country. The second question is how this difference plays out in day-to-day teaching. The primary difference is the motivations for students. This is really common when we get adult learners, that they are not really motivated, and we have to make sure that we make activities or we work on that motivation to get them learning. The third question is what are some things teachers must do to prepare themselves for successfully teaching these learners. The main thing is to pre-assess your learners on the first day of classes so you can get a good feeling of who can read, who can write, and who can speak successfully. What type of methodologies work for these groups of language learners? And we have 3 of them. 1, teaching grammar, for example, teach more inductively. Brainstorming. 2, use lots of structured pair and work group to support a teaching point. The next thing we're going to talk about is how ESL and EFL classroom differ. An ESL classroom is in a country where English is the dominant language. For example, I was an ESL student when I was in the United States, and right now I'm an EFL student where English is not the dominant language. As an ESL teacher may not consider a guidance counselor, but it is ready to suggest concrete ways for your students to address their daily problems in your local community. An ESL teacher is more in charge of get students to communicate because they will have to face problems in their community. For example, when going to the store asking for something or going to the library. And instead, an EFL teacher gets the students to a lot of practice orally. get them speaking in the classroom, but also teach them where to find opportunities to practice speaking outside of class. An example could be Kale, the conversation clubs we have, and that is where students get to practice their English out of school. And it is important to, if you have a family member that speaks English, you can practice too, and the teacher can reward them for doing so. The do's and don'ts for teaching English language learners. We're going to start with the do's. Do model for students what they are expected to do or produce. This is basically when teachers do the activity before the students, so students can get motivated. Do give verbal and written instruction. This practice can help all learners. As a teacher, you can use the board as to write the instructions, and verbal too. Do regularly check that students understand the lesson. Do encourage students to continue building their literacy skills in the home language, also known as L1. The don'ts. Don't speak too fast. Students might get confused with the words if the teacher is speaking too fast, or they might just not understand what the teacher is saying. Don't stand in front of the class and lecture or rely on a textbook as your only visual aid. There are a lot of material that teachers can do, especially for students that are barely learning the language. For example, you can use a lot of visual aids, PowerPoints, Prezi, or whatever that students can see and understand well. Don't act surprised if students are lost when you haven't clearly written and explained step-by-step directions. Students really get lost really quickly, so it is important to explain the directions and have someone rephrase directions for you. Don't simply ask, are there any questions? Don't assume that students understand, and don't ban students from using their native language in the classroom, especially with beginners, because they might have questions, but they will not know how to explain to you those questions. The next point is promoting positive attitudes in ESL and EFL classes. A student's attitudes towards the foreign language is very often influenced by teacher-student relationship, general classroom atmosphere, and the use of authentic teaching materials and activities. The teacher-student relationships, this is basically what type of relationship you have with the students. It is really important to maintain a healthy relationship because students see the teacher as a role model, and it is really important to be that role model that the students have for you. Fostering a positive psychological classroom atmosphere. In speaking activities, avoid excessive on-the-spot correction. Students might get embarrassed when you correct them in front of the class. That's why it is important to sometimes, depending on the activity or the mistake or the error they make, to at the end of the class talk to them. In writing tasks, adopt a correction code. Establish a set of classroom rules and enforce them fairly and constantly with all the students. At the beginning, like all the teachers have in their syllabus, they have the rules. So it is really to establish them at the beginning and with all the students. Incorporate collaborative work in your English classroom. creating an attractive physical classroom environment, pay attention to seating arrangement. There are a lot of different and sweet seating arrangements that teachers can have, not just the typical one. Make effective use of bulletin boards and display areas. This is really cool when teachers tell the students in group work that they have to use the bulletin board and make it pretty, and it involves group work. Poster, maps, newspaper clippings can be used in order to provide a stimulus for classroom discussion. Classroom procedures and rules are necessary for effective classroom organization. The next point is, should I study English at home or abroad? The number one point is, will it be too difficult? Yes, it will, but over there in the United States, there's a lot of help in order for you to understand the language. Will the culture shock be overwhelming? Yes, especially if you don't have your parents over there. I was lucky to be with my parents over there and have their support, but some students, it is really hard for them to get used to the culture like it was for me at the beginning. I lost a lot of weight because I did not like any of the food, but with the time I got used to it. Will it be too expensive? It depends on how well you manage your money. There are a lot of helps too that you can get from your schools, but it depends on which country you want to go to and which university you want to go and learn the language. But we have disadvantages of studying abroad. One of them, studying in another country does not mean learning English or other languages magically. The number 2 point is, culture shock will not help you feel integrated. The third one, first step in that new country and everything seems weird. The cost. The cost is really important because not all of us have the chances or opportunities to go to an expensive country and just study. But there are scholarships in which we can get from our school or other schools. Number 5, for some countries or university, your study abroad credits might not count towards your degree. This happened to me when I was in high school. I had to go 2 years back to finish my high school. So that's another disadvantages. It can be as hard to live in another country as to come back to your own. This is called reverse culture shock. This also happened to me. I was lost when I got here again. I wanted to go back, but with the time I got used to it. The next point is, oh my gosh. Okay, there. The next point is, and the last one is, 5 characteristics of successful EFL and ESL teachers. The first point is excellent interpersonal communication skills. I believe that all teachers should have a positive attitude and will always have to be energetic, because this will spread towards the students and this will motivate them more. A successful teacher should be flexible and open to change when things go different than planned. Appropriate classroom management, and develop meaningful lessons that appeal to students' interests and goals, and cultural awareness. And this is the reference, and this is all for me today. Thank you.